Building your first PC? Are you confused about where to start? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Brainamps Computing. Now, to go into a little bit of detail about the type of system that I'm running, I have Windows 10 right now. The processor that I have in my motherboard is an i5-8600K. It's the LGA 1151 socket set, and I do have a closed loop water cooler by EVGA. And 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM in there. So first things first, you want to go out and look for a case. For me, this is a good place to start. It was just to help me get an idea on what components I wanted to put and what I could fit inside of my case. So I went out and bought a mid-tower computer case. It was a Phanteks Eclipse P400 case. It has tamper glass on the side, 3 slots for 120mm fans, and then it also supports all the way up to a 360mm radiator for a closed loop CPU cooler. In my case, I only have a 240mm radiator in there. So for hard drive spacing, it's okay. I am having to buy an external hard drive case in the near future just because I want more storage, but the space that comes on the case itself, there's 2 hard drive slots in this little red box down close to the front. It can support a 2.5 or a 3.5 SSD or HHD hard drives in it. And overall, I like it. It's good. It's been solid. The tamper glass is nice and sturdy. So I highly recommend it for a good starter case. So after you decide what case you wanted to get, the next step would be to decide what motherboard to get. In my case, I went with the Gigabyte Z370P D3. So this motherboard can support 8th gen Intel processors, but it can also support 9th gen too. Just out of the box, it can only support 8th gen, and to get the 9th gen support, you need to update the BIOS on it. Also, another thing that I like about it too is it does support overclocking. It's super easy to do it in the BIOS. It explains to you how to do it in there as well too, and I thought it was pretty neat that it did that straight out of the box too. It can support 64 gigabytes of RAM max, DDR4 RAM with the base clock at 3000 megahertz. It also does have support for Intel Optane too, which is just Intel's version of the M.2 hard drive on it. Right now, I just have the Samsung Evo 970 500 gigabyte one, but I've been thinking about upgrading to the Optane one just to see what that's all about. Another thing that's pretty cool about it is it does support fan header splitting. So if you were to get a fan header splitting cable, you can plug in 2 fans to that one fan header using that cable, and it will support it as well too. Also, last but not least, it does have a RBG connection on it too. Alright, so once you decide the motherboard that you wanted to purchase, you need to look on what type of socket it supports as far as processors are concerning. In my case, my motherboard supported the LGA 1151 socket, and so after some research, after depending on, determining the application that I wanted to use the computer for, I ended up coming out with the i5-8600K processor from Intel. This processor is a 6-core, 6-thread, has a base clock of 3.6 gigahertz, and it can be turbo clocked all the way up to 4.5 gigahertz as well too. It can go up to 5.0. That's not manufacturer recommended. I don't recommend it, but it can be done if you're feeling dangerous. Now, depending on what CPU you decided to get, it'll depend on the socket type that the motherboard supports too. So deciding for your CPU cooler is really dependent on that socket type that the motherboard supports. Typically, closed loop CPU coolers, which is the one that I have, will come with support for AMD and Intel chipsets. It just the harness that it uses to tighten down on the motherboard changes just slightly. But that's going to be the key factor in deciding whether or not you want to get an air-cooled or a closed loop. It's preference, but make sure you get the type of CPU cooler that fits your socket type for your CPU. So after you decide what CPU you wanted to go with, the next step would be determining your power supply. I went with a Thermaltake 600 watt power supply. It comes with all your standard connectors on it. The instructions are really simple and easy to it. Most of it's just plug and play. It does have extra power connectors for video cards in case if you need one. And it does have 4 SATA connectors on it as well too for those hard drives that you want to put on it. After you've gotten the first several steps out of the way, the motherboard, the case, the CPU, the power supply, the next thing to determine is your RAM. Now, like I said earlier, my motherboard does support a 3000 megahertz base clock for the RAM, so I went out and got this the Corsair Vengeance RAM. Now this one is 2 8GB RAM cards in it. Both of them have a base clock at 3000 megahertz, and they are RBG Fusion as well too. So they do light up. I recommend this. I got two sets of these, so 32 gigabytes total in my system. Now, after you decided everything else so far along in the process, you should probably look for what type of storage you're going to want to use in it. Now, the motherboard does support SATA connectors on it, so you can get your standard SSD or your standard HHD, but because mine supported NVMe M.2, I went out and got the Samsung 970 EVO. This one's a 500 gigabyte one. I highly recommend it. It's probably the fastest storage device you can get out there that's supported right now. Maybe not this one in particular, but this type of storage is really fast, and I highly recommend it. It's good for gaming, it's good for video editing, and it's good just for daily applications. It has launch times quicker than anything. Alright guys, sorry for the video quality. I'm on my computer now, just using a different webcam. But I'm just showing you what type of graphics card I have because I do not have my actual graphics card box. I'm just going to show you what the computer is telling me. So right now I have the AMD XFX Radeon 550 graphics card with 4 gigabytes of VRAM on it. And this is it right here. Alright guys, so I hope that video may have helped you just kind of figure out a direction that you wanted to go with your PC. For the most part, that's all the parts that are really needed for it. Now, you'll probably figure out along the way you may need some extra ones, but that just depends on what system you're going to use it for, what system you're going to run, and all the applications on the computer that you would like to run. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that like button, and I will see y'all later.